such a common misconception about niching is that by picking a narrow niche, you are limiting the amount of people you can work with. But in reality, when you're starting out, you are going to reach such a small number of those people anyway. You're not even going to get close to tapping out that entire niche. And once you have grown your business to that point where there are no more potential customers in that market, then that is maybe when your niche is limiting. And that's a sign that you can start to unniche. But when you're starting out, the more specific your niche, the easier it's going to be to become known as the go-to person, to become known as the expert in that particular area. Hey, welcome back to Imperfect Action. This is episode 736. Today, I'm talking all about target audience, ideal client, and niche. I've realized that there's a lot of talking about these three different things and using those words interchangeably, using those terms interchangeably. I recently had a conversation with a coach who she was fairly new, and we were talking about how, she hadn't quite defined who her niche was, but she knew who her ideal client was, and she had no idea what a target audience was. And there was just so much confusion around, what is that target audience? What is that ideal client? What is that niche? What are the differences between those three things? And why do they matter? Now, the three of them do often get used interchangeably, but from my perspective as an online business strategist, I don't see them as being the same thing. And they're all three very important things to know in your business, but they're three very different things. And you know what? I've realized that so many people think that niching is simply defining your target audience, which it is not. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a second. This episode, I'm going to look at the difference between those three things, the difference between your target audience, your niche, and your ideal client. And then I'm going to answer a very common question that I get asked all the time, which is, do I need to niche down? So first of all, let's look at niche. What is a niche, or a niche if you're American? Now, most people define their niche by who they work with. For example, I'm a business coach for heart-centered entrepreneurs, or I'm a life coach for spiritual women. And that can work, but more often than not, when I see somebody niching, they are niching for the sake of niching. They're niching because somebody told them you have to pick a niche rather than because it's going to serve their business. And then sometimes when you niche down and you use terms like heart-centered entrepreneurs, it can actually leave people scratching their heads, wondering if you are for them, wondering if you can help their business, wondering if they are the right person to be working with you, because maybe they don't identify as a heart-centered entrepreneur, or they're not sure what a heart-centered entrepreneur actually is. Now, if you are an expert where you're working with one particular category of people, for example, you're a business coach for lawyers, or if what you offer can only help a particular category of people, because maybe you've developed a framework or a methodology that only works for those people. For example, you're a life coach for CEOs, then it makes sense to niche this way. Otherwise, you might be better off niching in a slightly different way. You might be better off niching by the problem that you solve or the solution that you deliver. For example, you might be a business coach that specializes in getting people to their first $10,000 month, or an online business strategist that helps you build an online business that's profitable when you're offline. That's what I do. That's my business. Or maybe you're a copywriter who helps somebody to make more online course sales through their emails. Or maybe you help people to quit smoking through hypnotherapy, where hypnotherapy is the solution and quitting smoking is the problem. Now, I deep dive all of this a bit more in my free masterclass, 7 Secrets for Consistent Sales. DM me on Instagram, send me the word masterclass. I'm there at stephtaylor.co and I'll send you the direct link, or head to stephtaylor.co/masterclass and you'll be able to register for that one over there. Now, what is a target audience? So your niche is essentially who you are helping, what you are doing as a business. What is your target audience then? Now, often when I ask somebody who their ideal client is, the answer they give me is something like, well, they are age 25 to 45 and live in Sydney and have kids, and they are either in a corporate job or they run a business. That I hear that over and over again. That's not an ideal client. That is an example of a target audience. Okay, so your target audience is like the segment of the population who within that segment, there is going to be people who are like your ideal client. It is the larger audience that you are targeting when you are trying to get visible. So for example, if you were pitching podcasts to be a guest on, then you would want to be a guest on podcasts that have listeners who are in your target audience. Or if you were running Facebook ads, you'd want to target an audience similar to your target audience. Not everyone in your target audience is going to be your ideal client. They're not all going to be right for what you sell, but the idea is that within your target audience, there will be quite a few people who are the right fit. So then that brings me to the third one. What is your ideal client? Now, this is often referred to as an avatar, your ideal client avatar. And this is the one person, made up or real, who personifies your dream client. The idea with defining your avatar isn't that you are limiting who you work with. It's about creating focus. It's about knowing whenever you're creating a piece of content, whenever you are writing copy, whenever you are creating a new offer, whenever you're writing out messaging for your offers, you're focusing it in on this one dream person, but you're not saying no to everybody who isn't this dream person, but it's about creating focus, right? Whereas niching, you would potentially be saying no to people who do not fit within that niche. So if you were the business coach who specializes in getting people to 10K months, you would most likely say no to a client who is looking to get from $50,000 months to $100,000 months because you can't help them with that. Whereas somebody who is not your ideal client, you can still potentially help them. They're just not that dream client that you are focusing the content and the messaging and your offers towards. Now, the idea with the focus is that you don't then have to try and talk to 100 different people with 100 different problems at once. You're speaking to the one person with the one problem, knowing that there are going to be other people within your target audience who have that same problem, who are also going to resonate with that messaging, but you're not trying to talk to everybody in one go, and you're making it less, by trying to talk to everybody in one go, it becomes really confusing. It can become really overwhelming. It can lead to people asking, is this for me? Okay. So it also means you can dive deeper into your ideal client's pain points, frustrations, their struggles. You can get into their heads. You can uncover what they believe. And that makes it so much easier then to create content that meets them where they are at and that moves them towards buying from you rather than trying to meet your entire target audience where they are at. Now, do you have to niche? Do you have to niche? A lot of people out there will tell you that, yes, you absolutely have to niche if you want to have a successful online business. I don't believe you have to do anything you don't want to in your business. It is your business, after all. You get to make the rules. If you do not want to niche down, you don't have to niche down. But the great thing about niching down is that, firstly, it's not permanent. And I'll talk about that in a second. But the other great thing about niching down is it doesn't have to be what you think niching down is, right? So I talked about this a bit earlier in this episode where it's not about saying, well, I only work with these people, but you can niche down by the problem that you solve or the solution that you deliver. And when I say that it's not permanent, very few decisions in your business are actually permanent. And the niche that you pick for now doesn't have to be forever. If you are that business coach helping people get to 10K months, maybe that's something that you will do for the first couple of years in your business. And then maybe once you've grown your own business and you've learned how to scale to 50K months, maybe your niche becomes helping people get from 20K to 50K months. Right? So you can change all of these things. And in my own business, I have niched and pivoted and unniched a few times. And sometimes these have been really subtle shifts in messaging. Other times they've been completely big pivots where I've fired clients and started from scratch and retired all of my offers and started again. Back in episode 642, I shared some signs that you might be in the wrong niche and how to choose the right niche for you. So if you want the direct link to listen to that, send me a DM on Instagram. I'm there at stephtaylor.co. Send me 642, just that number, and I will send you the direct link to listen. Otherwise, you'll find the link to that episode in the show notes for this as well. When you are niching, I think it's really useful, especially when you are starting out and you're yet to establish your expertise, you're yet to become known as the go-to for something. It becomes a lot easier to make waves in a swimming pool than an ocean. This is Seth Godin's analogy, and I love it. If you think about jumping into a swimming pool, there's going to be waves, you're going to make ripples. Whereas if you dive into the ocean, it's not going to really make much of a ripple that impacts anybody at all. So if you pick a really well-defined niche, it's a lot easier to become the go-to person, to create those ripples in that smaller swimming pool than it is to try and go out there and compete with everybody else who is in that larger category, right? The unniched category. And once you have made waves in the swimming pool, you can look at expanding to more swimming pools or to a bigger pool. But it's much easier when you're brand new because there is so much less competition in those smaller niches. And no, it's not limiting your business. I know this is such a common misconception about niching, is that by picking a narrow niche, you are limiting the amount of people you can work with. But in reality, when you're starting out, you are going to reach such a small number of those people anyway. You're not even going to get close to tapping out that entire niche. And once you have grown your business to that point where there are no more potential customers in that market, then that is maybe when your niche is limiting. And that's a sign that you can start to unniche. But when you're starting out, the more specific your niche, the easier it's going to be to become known as the go-to person, to become known as the expert in that particular area. And specificity, it sells, right? So I think about, for example, hairdressers. Somebody who is a hairdresser versus being a colorist that specializes in blondes. It's going to be a lot easier to become known as a colorist that specializes in blonde hair than as a hairdresser because there's so much less competition. And you can do one thing really, really well and become known as the go-to for that one thing. Or a business coach versus a business coach that will help you to launch your first course. There are so many thousands of business coaches out there, but there probably aren't as many that specialize in just launching that first course. So you'll become known as that person who is helping them to launch that first course. It means that you can speak so much more clearly to your ideal client, to the problem that you solve, and to the specific solution that you offer. And that means that you can become that go-to person. You can build up that reputation as that go-to person. And then it becomes a lot easier to grow your business from there. So there you have it. There is the difference between your ideal client, your niche, and your target audience, as well as a couple of little tips about niching down. But if you really want to know how to identify your niche, head on back to episode 642. Send me a DM on Instagram at stephtaylor.co, 642-642, just that number, and I will send you the direct link to listen to that. And if you're looking to increase the sales you're making in your business, make them more consistently, I have a free training for you, 7 secrets to consistent sales. Send me a DM on Instagram, send me the word masterclass, and I'll send you the link, or head to stephtaylor.co/masterclass. And you can register for that one over there. If you have learned anything from this show so far, please take 30 seconds to leave a quick rating and review. It means a lot to me. I read every single one of them. And yeah, it just reminds me that there is humans on the other side of the microphone that I spend so much time talking into. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next time.